Welcome back to Review, the show where we go back and watch movies to see if we still like them. As always, my name's Adam.
And I'm Josh.
And this week we're going to be talking about the 2018 movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I thought we were doing Power Rangers.
Shut up. So we're not even going to pretend that you don't know who Spider-Man is.
One of the cool things about Spider-Man and other superheroes in general is that instead of asking someone if they know who he is, it's how they know who he is.
Between the various movies, comic books, video games, and cartoons, everybody has their own interpretation of Spider-Man that they bonded to.
Some of us grew up with Tobey Maguire, some of us knew him as Andrew Garfield, and now Tom Holland is also thrown into the mix. And of course, SpiderMan, emissary of hell.
Now, considering how many awards this movie won and how much money it made, we're going to assume you're one of the millions of people who saw it.
But if by chance you haven't, spoiler warning.
Now, I've always been a big Spider-Man fan. In fact, I spent most of my birthday wishes on getting spider powers. Hasn't come true yet. Here's hoping on 30. And I loved the movie, not just because it was a good movie, but it knows how much of a Spider-Man fan you are while watching it. The comic book art style was amazing, and the whole film was filled with more Easter eggs than Stan Lee's Easter basket. And even though I had low expectations when I went and saw the movie, it was easily my favorite film that year, and this was the same year that Infinity War and Black Panther came out.
When I saw the movie, I was tentatively looking forward to it. I don't tend to keep up with comic book culture in general, so to my complete surprise, this movie turned out to be an absolute banger.
It was an absolute banger, mate.
An absolute banger, mate.
Completely blew my tits off. And now that we've gone back and reviewed the movie, how did we feel about it this time around?
Honestly, for me, if there's one massive benefit to getting to rewatch it, it's getting to rewatch it in 4K where you can really appreciate the beautiful visuals that go along with it. It's unique, but it also gives off a familiar comic book feel with all the colors, textures, and use of text. Like when Miles' thoughts are written out, or his speech bubbles when he's excited.
And not only is the movie well animated, each version of Spider-Man is animated differently depending on their universe of origin. For instance, Spider-Man Noir has this black and white aesthetic, as well as this sort of flickering filter on top of him that makes it look like you're watching him on an old-time TV. Penny Parker looks like an anime character, but she also blends in well with this three-dimensional world. And Spider-Ham looks like a cartoon pig who reminds you of any variety of cartoon pigs.
Got a problem with cartoons?
That's all, folks.
Thankfully, the character development didn't really take a back seat, and all the characters had organic relationships.
The movie primarily focuses on two main characters, Miles Morales and Peter B. Parker. Miles Morales is incredibly well written. All his dialogue with every other character in the movie is absolutely natural. He gets along great with the kids in his own neighborhood, but feels a little awkward in his new school. He feels like he can't be Spider-Man at first because his story isn't Peter Parker's. However, it turns out not only does he have a lot of similarities with Peter Parker, he's really shaping the Spider-Man story into his own. There's also these dialogues with his father, who's really just trying to look after his son, albeit in a kind of awkward way.
I love you, Dad.
You're dropping me off out of
I
school.
love you, Dad.
But it does build up to this really beautiful moment between the two of them.
Then there's Peter B. Parker, who is exactly what would have happened if I had gotten my wish to be Spider-Man. He's a bit jaded, absolutely burnt out, and he's just doing everything he can to get home so he can cry in the shower.
Are you okay?
No.
I'm trying to gauge when I should start looking concerned.
Peter's been Spider-Man for a long time, and it's definitely taken its toll on him, as well as his personal relationships. But you can still tell that it's Peter Parker based on his compulsory need to help people out, even though he doesn't want to.
It was the relationship with Miles' uncle Aaron, aka the Prowler, that really stood out to me. He's seemingly flawed, but he really is one of Miles' biggest role models. Aaron provided him with a safe space to vent, express his creativity, and just generally be himself. Oh, not to mention that real slick relationship advice.
I'm telling you, man, it's science.
You also have Gwen Stacy, aka Spider-Woman, who has her own tragic backstory because spider people can't be happy. She has trouble getting close to people because she was unable to save the Peter Parker in her reality. But she decides to help Miles out, and it was cool to watch the relationship evolve naturally instead of being forced into a coupling at the end of the movie. Plus, she really helps drive home the movie's point of anyone can be Spider-Man.
And of course, you really can't talk about this movie without talking about the soundtrack. I'm usually not a fan of pop music being used in movies, especially animated features that are supposed to stand the test of time. But the way that music is really tied to individual characters in a way that gives them their own individual soundtrack is brilliant and fleshes out the world really well. Kinda wish I had my own soundtrack. For instance though, Aaron brings out his love for 90s rap, Miles listens to Post Malone, and Gwen shows you a taste of the punk rock music that her band plays. The music isn't just one note or one style, because in reality, there isn't just one kind of music out there.
And overall, one of the movie's best features is just how rewatchable it is. The scenes are just as exciting, the characters are just as relatable, and the movie's full of so many details you couldn't possibly catch them all in 1, 2, or even 20 viewings. And trust me, I've done that. This movie is my go-to movie anytime I'm feeling sick or depressed. So I've watched it a lot this year, and I'm still finding new things, like the different sodas in different universes, or with the number 42 reoccurring in homage to Jackie Robinson, or with how Aunt May refers to Doc Ock as Liv, especially after Doc Ock already said,
My friends actually call me Liv. My enemies
call me Doc Ock.
Oh, great, it's Liv.
Which I find interesting because Doc Ock and Aunt May dated in the comics, so yeah, go Aunt May.
Bless you.
I was holding that the entire time.
So after this journey back into the Spider-Verse, how do we feel about rewatching it again? For me, it's a fresh reminder of why I love superhero movies. The action, the characters, and how it gives me that old feeling of just watching childhood cartoons on Saturday morning.
As for me, I think I have to say this is actually my favorite Spider-Man movie. Yes, I love the Tobey Maguire movies as well as the Tom Holland movies, but this movie still comes out on top. And I think a big part of that has to do with the fact that this movie rewards you for being a fan of those movies by constantly calling back to them, as well as all the things that we love about Spider-Man. And that's another thing too, this movie is full of love. Love for Spider-Man, love for the comics, love for interpersonal relationships, and love for the fans. And all of that love is on beautiful display, and it's so refreshing to see, and anyone should see it.
So if that didn't make it clear, our final thoughts are that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a must-watch movie time and time again. The story and the characters are timeless, and this is easily the best example of a movie that's made for everyone.
But those have been our thoughts. We are far more curious about your thoughts. If you agree with us, great, and if not, let's fight about it.
And thank you guys for coming back. If you have any movies or games you'd like us to review or replay to review, let us know in the comments.
But until then, my name's Adam,
And I'm Josh.
and we'll see you guys next time.